in a quiet afternoon at a small hospital, where the sunlight faded softly through the window panes, Elon Musk, a man known worldwide for his groundbreaking inventions and visionary ideas, found himself faced with a question that puzzled him more than any technological challenge he had ever encountered. A little girl, with wide, curious eyes, stood before him, breaking the serene atmosphere with a question so profound it caught him completely off guard. "Where do you think we go when we die?" The question was posed gently, yet it felt like it touched something deep within. It didn't come from a scientist or a philosopher, but from a child. And this simple inquiry didn't just stir Elon's mind, it awakened thoughts he had buried long ago. As he embarked on a journey to find an answer, Elon never imagined that this little girl would become the inspiration for him to view life in a completely different way. Let's step into this emotional and meaningful story, where the mysteries of life, faith, and science intertwine under the tender glow of a small yet powerful heart. "Mr. Musk!" A small but determined voice echoed in the quiet hospital hallway. Elon looked up to see a frail little girl with wide, serious eyes standing in front of him. "I want to ask you something," she said, her voice radiating curiosity but also a sense of seriousness. Elon raised his eyebrows slightly, surprised by the confidence in her voice. He was on a routine visit to meet with doctors and patients, a part of his regular charitable activities. Usually, he was greeted with cheerful remarks or short questions about rockets and the future. But this time, his intuition told him that this would not be an ordinary conversation. "All right. Go ahead and ask," he said with an encouraging smile, his eyes reflecting his curiosity back at her. The girl hesitated for a moment, as if arranging her thoughts. Then, with a deep breath, she asked, "Do you think we go somewhere when we die?" The question landed like a pebble dropped into a still pond, sending ripples through the air. Elon paused, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Sometimes, the simplest questions held the greatest power, and he knew that this was not something an average child would ask. He looked at her, his gaze filled with a mix of wonder and the weight of contemplation. "That's a very big question," he admitted, his voice slow and deliberate. "You know, I never thought I'd have to answer something like this." The girl stood still, her small hands clasped together, her eyes fixed intently on him. The surrounding space seemed to grow oddly quiet. Elon could sense the curious gazes of others in the room, but at that moment, it felt like only he and the girl existed in their shared moment. "You see," Elon continued, his eyes shifting to the ceiling as if searching for answers among the shadows of his memories. "The universe we live in is truly extraordinary. I've always believed that everything within it is connected, like a great symphony we only hear a small part of." He paused, his gaze returning to her. "Perhaps, when we leave this world, we become a part of something bigger, a part of that symphony. But to be honest, I don't have all the answers." The little girl tilted her head, her eyes reflecting a hint of pondering. "So, you mean we become part of the stars in the sky?" "Right." Her voice was gentle, yet it carried a sense of hope that Elon could feel. He crouched down, a slight smile appearing on his lips. "Maybe so," he replied sincerely. "But I think the important thing isn't knowing for certain what happens. It's about continuing to ask questions and seek answers. That journey is what truly matters." Elon stood silently, his gaze fixed on the little girl's small face. The question she had asked felt like an arrow piercing into the deepest corners of his thoughts, ones he had long avoided. A shiver ran down his spine, not out of fear, but because of the weight of her words. Slowly, he rubbed his chin, as though trying to pull together fragments of memories to form a fitting answer. Questions about the universe, technology, the future of humanity, all of these seemed easier than this. But her question wasn't about science. It touched on something intangible yet profoundly significant, the meaning of life and death. Elon Musk. You can't avoid this, he told himself, his eyes momentarily drifting to her tiny hands clenched tightly together. I'm not sure I can give you a precise answer, he finally said, his voice warm and honest. But I believe that we don't always need to know everything right away. Sometimes, accepting that there are things we don't understand is an important part of life. The girl looked up, her eyes fixed intently on his words. Yet in those wide eyes, Elon could see a faint shadow of unease, as though she was still searching for something she hadn't yet found. But what if God really exists? She asked, her small voice rippling like a gentle wave. Her eyes were full of longing, as if searching for a spark of certainty in his face. Elon felt as though he had been pushed out of his comfort zone. Her question didn't just surprise him, it stirred a feeling he had never experienced before. He wasn't just facing the curiosity of a child but also her deep yearning for hope and belief. I think, he began, speaking slowly as if weighing each word. Everyone has their own beliefs. Some people believe in God, others in science, and some try to reconcile the two. But no matter what you believe, I think the most important thing is to hold on to hope, because hope is what keeps us moving forward, even when things are unclear. The girl remained silent, her lips pressed tightly together. Elon saw her gaze soften slightly, but deep within, there was still a flicker of unease. But what if God isn't real? She asked, her voice trembling as if afraid her question might disappoint him. Elon took a deep breath, then crouched down so his eyes met hers. That might be true, he said gently, but no one can know for sure. The important thing isn't having all the answers, but never stopping your questions. It's the search that makes life worth living. The girl stared at him, her eyes seeming to process each word he spoke. Then suddenly, tears rolled down her cheeks. Elon hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. But almost immediately, he realized those tears weren't of sadness but of release. Like a dam finally breaking after holding back for far too long. You know, he said, his voice gentle like a soft breeze. Sometimes crying is a way for the soul to feel lighter. And remember, you don't have to go through this journey alone. There will always be people by your side and always something worth believing in. He slowly bent down, gently placing a hand on the girl's shoulder. You see, sometimes crying is how we remind ourselves that we are still strong, he said, his warm voice seeking to ease her burden. Don't hold back your emotions. Let the tears help lighten your heart. The girl looked up, her red-rimmed eyes still glistening with tears on her cheeks. But I'm scared, she said, her voice trembling. Scared that I'll never understand. What if everything is just nothingness? Elon felt a strange surge of emotion rising in his chest. Her question wasn't just the worry of a child. It was the very question that so many adults have avoided all their lives. You know, he replied, his gaze deep and thoughtful. There are things we may never fully understand. But that doesn't mean you should stop searching. It's the journey to find the answers that truly matters. The girl fell silent for a long moment, as if trying to piece together his words with the thoughts swirling in her mind. Elon saw a glimmer in her eyes, not the light of certainty, but a fragile yet powerful spark of hope. You know, Elon continued, his voice softer now. When I was young, I used to ask myself questions just like yours. I didn't know why things happened, or whether there was a greater meaning behind life. But I've learned that not all questions need answers right away. Sometimes, just continuing to ask them is a way to understand yourself and the world better. The girl wiped her tears away, her eyes brightening slightly, as if she had just untangled a knot in her heart. So, I can keep asking without being afraid, right? Elon nodded, a kind smile spreading across his face. Not only can you ask, but you should keep asking. Don't fear the things you don't understand. The more you ask, the more you search, the more you'll see that the journey itself is what truly matters. The girl nodded firmly, a gentle smile appearing on her face. In that moment, Elon felt something shift within himself. This wasn't just an ordinary conversation. It wasn't just about helping her find a little peace, but also about realizing that sometimes the simplest questions hold the greatest power to touch the deepest parts of our hearts. As he turned to leave, the quiet hum of the hospital hallway served as a backdrop to the whirlwind of thoughts in his mind. Her questions still echoed in his head, stirring reflections he had never before considered. Had he said enough? Had he truly helped her feel better? Or was he just as uncertain about the answers as she was? Stepping into the elevator, Elon caught a glimpse of his reflection in the polished metal doors. In those eyes, he didn't just see a scientist or an entrepreneur. He saw a man walking his own path of searching for meaning, just like that little girl. Do we really need all the answers? He thought to himself. Or is it enough to know that, no matter what, the act of searching is already part of the answer? In that moment, Elon realized that science, technology, and faith aren't opposites, they're pieces of a larger puzzle. And sometimes, it's the questions without answers that serve as a guiding light, leading humanity forward. In the days that followed, the image of the little girl with her eyes full of curiosity lingered in Elon's mind. It seemed she had awakened something he had always ignored amidst the relentless pace of science and technology. Her seemingly small question carried the weight of a stone dropped into a still lake, sending ripples that he couldn't ignore. For the first time in many years, Elon found himself searching for answers that weren't tied to a technical problem or a future goal. This was a different journey, a journey into questions that exceeded his understanding. Late into the night, he would sit in his study, flipping through pages of books about philosophy, faith, and existence. Each book felt like a door opening into a realm of thoughts he had never explored before. He also began conversations with those around him, people with diverse beliefs and perspectives. Some spoke of faith in a higher power, while others championed science as the sole guiding light. Yet, no matter how much he listened, there was always a missing piece, as though he were standing before an incomplete picture, where each fragment failed to fit perfectly. Then one night, sitting on his balcony under a star-filled sky, Elon felt an inexplicable sense of peace. He looked up at the shimmering lights above, as if they were the eternal questions of the universe whispering to him. Perhaps, he thought, the answers weren't the most important thing. It was the act of seeking, of continuously questioning, that gave life its true meaning. Underscore 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 underscore. A few weeks later, Elon attended a dinner party in a grand room illuminated by the reflections of chandeliers. Some of the world's brightest minds, scientists, philosophers, engineers, entrepreneurs, gathered to discuss grand ideas. Laughter and spirited debates echoed as the guests delved into humanity's future and the boundaries science might push beyond. But as the evening wore on, the conversation began to shift. Someone mentioned the nature of the universe, which led to deeper questions about the meaning of life and faith. Elon remained silent, his eyes fixed on the glass of wine before him, attentively listening to every word. Arguments about science and faith, about logic and intuition, wove through the room. He realized the entire gathering was being drawn into a dialogue that transcended the usual topics of their debates. The only person who had not spoken yet was an elderly woman sitting across from him. Her eyes, kind yet sharp, seemed to hold an ocean of knowledge. At last, she leaned forward, her gentle gaze meeting Elon's. "Mr. Musk?" she said. her voice soft yet warm. You've looked into the universe through the ships you've built. But when you gaze at the night sky, what is it that you truly feel in its depths? The question made Elon look up, his eyes briefly drifting to the ceiling. This wasn't a question about technology or his mission to conquer space. It reached a deeper corner, a part of himself he had only just begun to explore. He thought of the little girl, her questions, and the nights spent reflecting on his balcony. I think, he began slowly, that the universe is like a book of which we've only read a few pages. No matter how much we strive, there will always be things beyond human understanding. And I think it's that mystery that makes it beautiful. The woman nodded slightly, her eyes glimmering with profound understanding. Have you ever considered that this mystery might not just be part of the universe? She asked, her voice like a whisper of time. But a sign, a calling from something greater? Elon was silent for a moment, his gaze turning toward the window where the starlight sparkled. Perhaps, he replied thoughtfully. I can't be certain, but I believe there is something that connects us all. Something we can't see or touch, but it's there, in some way. Always present. The woman smiled, her warmth like a light piercing through the darkness. Sometimes, the answer isn't the destination, she said, her voice as light as a breeze. It's the journey of searching that truly matters. Elon nodded quietly, feeling an unusual sense of peace settle within him. Perhaps he didn't need to have all the answers. And perhaps it was the questions, the conversations, and the nights spent gazing at the stars that defined the true meaning of life. Months later, Elon unexpectedly returned to the hospital, the place that had once stirred profound reflections within him. He came with the intention of visiting an old friend. But as he walked through the long, quiet hallway, a strange feeling crept over him. His mind drifted back to the image of the little girl, her bright eyes, heavy with the weight of her questions. Elon paused in front of the waiting room, where sunlight filtered softly through the windows onto the empty chairs. He sighed, wondering if the girl might still be there, or if it was just a vivid memory pulling at him. But as soon as he stepped through the door, his heart gave a slight flutter. There she was, sitting in the same spot, though she looked slightly older. Her curious, thoughtful gaze remained unchanged. The girl looked up and immediately recognized him. Her eyes lit up like the first rays of sunlight after a rainstorm. "Mr. Musk!" she exclaimed, running quickly toward him. "I didn't think you'd come back." Elon smiled, leaning down so his eyes were level with hers. "I couldn't imagine being anywhere else," he replied, his voice warm and sincere. "I've thought a lot about our last conversation." The girl's eyes sparkled with pure curiosity. "Really? Sir? What have you been thinking about? About where we go when we die?" Elon nodded gently. "Yes. About that, and about everything you made me reflect on. I realize your question wasn't just about life after death. It was about something even greater." "Greater? How so, sir?" she asked, tilting her head, her eyes fixed on him. Elon sat down beside her, his hands clasped together, his voice imbued with the weight of his thoughts. "I realize that we don't always need to have all the answers right away. Sometimes, the journey of searching and asking questions is the most meaningful part. And that journey connects us all, not just to each other, but to the vast world around us." The girl was silent for a moment, her eyebrows furrowing slightly as she processed his words. Then, suddenly, she smiled, a gentle smile that carried an air of understanding. "I think I get it now. It's okay not to know everything. But I'll keep asking." Elon nodded, standing up, his eyes filled with pride. "Exactly. Keep asking questions. Keep searching. Because it's the questions that will guide you to where you need to go." The girl stood up, her smile now brighter than before. "I promise I will. Thank you, Mr. Musk." Elon placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture as if to pass on strength for her promise. As he walked away, a deep sense of peace filled him. He hadn't just left her with a lesson, it seemed she had also taught him something invaluable with her sincerity. From that day on, Elon's life changed in ways he hadn't anticipated. He continued to pursue dreams that pushed the boundaries of Earth. But now, he also embraced the mysteries that science couldn't explain. He understood that faith and curiosity weren't at odds but could coexist, complementing each other. And even though he didn't always have the answers, he learned to find peace in the journey of searching. As for the little girl, she grew up with a heart full of a desire to explore. She was no longer afraid of the unknown. Instead, she embraced the belief that asking questions and learning are what define life. Somehow, she had taught Elon this through her curiosity and sincerity. As time went by, her question continued to follow Elon in his conversations and quiet moments. One evening, as he gazed at the star-filled sky, he felt an invisible thread connecting everything, from distant planets to the people he had met. He realized that no matter how far humanity reaches, the search for meaning remains the bond that ties us together. In that moment, he smiled, not because he had found the answers, but because he understood that it is the questions themselves that bring true meaning to life. And sometimes, the greatest discoveries don't come from laboratories or the vastness of space, but from simple conversations, from the gaze of a child, and from one's own heart. Years later, standing on a high hill under a brilliantly starry sky, Elon remembered the moment he shared with the little girl. That brief conversation, seemingly just a small stop along his life's grand journey, turned out to be a lighthouse illuminating a part of his soul he had never explored. He realized that it wasn't his accomplishments or groundbreaking inventions that defined his life, but the questions from a little girl, from himself, and from humanity. Those questions not only opened new paths but also reminded him that the true meaning of life doesn't always lie in the answers, but in the way we search for and embrace the unknown. Elon smiled softly, a sense of peace spreading through each breath. He didn't know where the little girl was now, but he felt her presence in every journey he continued, in every decision and aspiration he pursued. Somehow, she had given him an invaluable gift, a profound understanding that it is the search itself, the unanswered mysteries, that connect us all. The night sky seemed even more radiant, as if inviting him to keep moving forward. And in that moment, Elon knew that his journey was never truly over, for there would always be new questions, new wonders waiting to be discovered. And that, he realized, was what made life meaningful. Note: the above story is entirely fictional, created for the purpose of entertainment and conveying meaningful life messages. The characters and events in the story are symbolic and do not represent the actual experiences of any individual. We hope this story provides you with moments of relaxation and reflection, while inspiring curiosity, faith, and the journey to seek meaning in life.